This is an extension of the pen tool video. I'm going to do some sample letter forms here. We'll trace over these and you'll see how you can use the pen tool to create these more complex letter forms. The two main questions that come up when you're working with the pen tool are how many points do you use and where do you put your points? And there's no real solid answer to those questions, only some suggestions. In terms of how many points do you use, it really comes down to the nature of the object you're trying to draw. If you want a detailed or wobbly looking shape, then you need more points to do that. If you're looking for a very clean, smooth shape, then you want to try and do that with as few points as possible. Most of the time you're going for the latter. You're trying to create smooth shapes, smooth curves. So you want to try and minimize the number of points that you have. Just to show you an example, if I want to, for some reason, try and draw a circle using the pen tool, we could try and draw that using, let's say, 4 points there with handles. I always make my circles a bit lopsided for some reason. So you can see we end up with a fairly smooth looking shape there. If I try this again, but I use lots of points and lots of paths as I go around, even if you're trying quite hard, it's difficult to get a smooth looking shape out of this. Because each point has its own set of handles, it's very difficult to make all those handles go in the same direction and therefore get you a smooth shape. So if you look at the difference there, the more points you use, the more detail you get, therefore the more wobbly a shape you have. Now it's not like one is right or wrong, it's just about what you're trying to achieve. Although what I find is most of the time with vector graphics, because you are creating those stylized images, or those letter forms, or those logos, you're really going for fewer points if you can help it. In terms of where the points go, there's a couple of ways you can look at this. I suppose the best advice I can give you there is wherever you put one point, that's going to determine where the next one goes. This is particularly true of curved objects. Where you place the point and the handles you put on it is going to really limit your options for where the next point will go, depending on the kind of line you're going to get. So I'm going to go through two methods while drawing these shapes. The first one, I'll do this black letter G. This will be based on just focusing on the corners. So I'm going to try and put the points wherever there are corners. Now, you always need to put points at corners, but I'm going to try and keep them only in corners and not put them anywhere else. There will be some situations, like around here, where I need the curve to change direction. So I'm going to put points sort of where that curve changes direction, where it goes from being a concave to a convex curve, for example. But yeah, that's the basic one I'm going to go for. When we do the S, we're going to look at another method, which involves keeping all of your Bézier handles at 90 degrees. So we'll talk about that a bit more when we get to that one, but I'll show you these two approaches and you'll see how they affect the way that you draw a shape. Yeah, like this. Cool. So with this G, we're going to focus on just putting points at the corners. If you can help it when you start a new vector shape, I actually find it's quite handy to try and find a corner that has no curves going in and out of that corner, because that means you don't have to worry about the handles going into or out of that point to begin with. So here is a pretty good place for the first point, because the line going into that and the line coming out, they're both not curved. Now I want to go straight down to this next point. So you might recall from the last video, you can hold down Shift. That will keep your line straight. And we'll go there. Sorry, just bear with me a sec. There we go. Now we've got another straight line going to this one, so I can just click in this next corner, and that will join it with a straight line path. Now we've got pretty much a predominantly straight edge until it starts curving around about here. So I'll get this point to roughly where it starts curving. I'm holding down Shift as well to keep that line straight. And there we go. Now this next line is going to start to curve. So before I draw my next point, as we saw in the last video, I'm going to click on this point and drag a handle out, which is going to instruct my next line to curve. Now I'm going to drag this handle straight down because you can see the line first starts by going down and then starts curving around. So this handle will go straight down. That's giving me a bit of curvature on this line here. Whoop. And so now you can see my next line is starting to curve. Curve roughly changes direction around here. So I'm going to put a point in and draw a handle out. Now again, this handle is going in the direction I want my next line to go. So I'll put it about there. You notice that that curve has become a bit too deep, so I must have made that handle a bit too long. I'm just going to hold down Control and drag that handle back up, just to make that a bit more shallow. So remember, as you're drawing, you can hold down Command to adjust your last path. Now, what are we doing here? I might be able to get away with putting a point here. And if I drag out some long enough handles, it might just, hey, yeah, that's working. It's giving me just the shape that I require there. So you can see with that fairly long handle there, that's taking that curve, spinning it around and putting it into this one. This second handle, which is attached, you can see what that's trying to do to the next line. You're quite fortunate in Illustrator now, it actually previews the next line for you. When I was learning this, it never did that, so you had to kind of guess what the next line was going to do. You can see this is obviously curving in the wrong direction, and it's because we have a corner point here. We don't need that handle going in that direction. So I'm just going to click on that point to remove that second handle. Now there's two options here. One is you can just go straight to your next point and click and drag to try and get that curve that you want. And that will do the job just fine. The other option is with this point, kind of like what I did up here, because we know the next line is going to curve, we can click on that point to drag out a second handle. The challenge with that method is you do have that handle already there, and it's going to try to manipulate that one when you put your next curve in. So there is a way around that. You can hold down Option on the keyboard and then drag, and that's going to give you a handle independent to that other one. So you could do it that way. Yeah, so if you wanted to go that way, instead of clicking and dragging on that point to make a second handle, because that's going to manipulate your first one, you hold down Option and then drag on that point. That gives you a second handle that you can control independently. You know, you need the line to curve roughly in that direction. And then we can put that there. And then we need to hold down Control just to adjust that curve like so. If you're new to this, or if you're like me, you'd probably find it easier just to do that point, drag out the handle to get the curve you want, and you should be all good. But you might find in some situations it might not work that easily. Don't need that second handle, so I'll click on that point to get rid of it. We can go straight to this next corner, straight to that corner, straight to that corner, hold down Shift to go straight up. This is another option where you have the choice. You could click and drag on this point to create a handle, and then just click to go straight to the next one. So as I mentioned before, you see you get a feel for this after a while, and you can just work out roughly how long that handle needs to be to get the kind of curve you want. Or alternatively, you can just go to this next point and drag your handles out from there. Click to get rid of that second handle, straight here, and then straight there to close it off. And then we'll just do the counter. So these are pretty simple actually. A few straight line points here. And then we have this one. Let's see if we can get the curve from that point. Hooray. Click to get rid of the second handle. Click there. And then click and drag on the last point just to get that handle in there. So with that shape I've made, we've got the big shape we did first, and then those two counters. So we would need to select all three of those shapes and then use our shape builder, hold down Option and subtract those shapes from there to punch them out. And then we've drawn that using the pen tool. So you can see it's kept nice and clean, nice and simple. You get a smooth looking shape. Now the other method that you can use, which is very handy when you're dealing with fairly curved letterforms, is to keep all of your handles, your Bézier handles, at 90 degrees, so either horizontal or vertical. I'll provide a link on Blackboard and in the comment to this video which takes you to a blog which discusses the pros and cons of working with horizontal and vertical Béziers. If you look at some of the examples in here, you can see it keeps things nice and neat, nice and orderly. Really good for when you've got very cursive scripts or very flowy or organic objects. You know, this thing here is a thing of beauty, getting all those Bézier curves perfectly vertical. So it's worth a read, particularly if you are going to be doing some scripty type. To help you with this, if you're going this method, which is a method I tend to use a bit nowadays as well, I always keep a circle in mind. So the idea is you put points at the outermost point of a curve, or where it curves the most. And if you think about a circle, there's always points at the top, bottom, left, and right. So that's where you try and put your points as well, top, bottom, left, and right. And you keep your handles horizontal or vertical. So we'll give that a go, see how it works. It's not always going to work perfectly as well. In fact, this might be a bad letter to demonstrate it on, but we'll see how we go. So we'll start with a corner point. Straight to that one. Straight to this one here. Now, how's this actually going to work? So you can see we don't really get the top, the bottom, or the left and right of this curve. So I suppose one way we could approach it is just do a line straight down to here. We'll click and drag directly out to the left like so. So I'm holding down Shift to keep this handle horizontal. That's pretty close. And then we'll just click to put one point there. I'm just going to hold down Command or Control. I'm also holding down Shift to keep that handle horizontal as well. So that gives me that curve there. Now for this one, if you follow the curve along, you can see we've got what's kind of like the top of a circle here. So where that curve bulges out the most, that's where I'm going to put my next one. And as we drag out the handles, we keep Shift held down, and that keeps them perfectly horizontal. Now you can see as I go around to here, I'm probably going to need my next point here. That's kind of like the bottom of a circle. And drag out some little handles there. You can see that this handle here was just a touch too long, and that's giving me a curve that's too deep. So I'm just going to hold down Control, pull that back in. As we go around the circle, we have the left point where it bulges out the most. So I'll put some handles there. This one was a bit too long, so we'll rein that in. And from here we just go, looks like it curves a little bit inwards actually. So I guess we kind of need to find the top of the circle, which might be somewhere around here. No, that's not going to work. Might just need to rethink the position of this point. There's a bit more there. Drag that in. Whoops. Oops. So we might just click once there to help straighten it out. And then we'll go straight to that point. Straight to that one. Hold down Shift, go straight up. Oh, now here, it looks like we're kind of at the bottom of a circle. So we'll click and drag outwards to get a handle for that point. About there-ish, hopefully. Oh, no, you can see I made that too long. That's right. Click to get our point in there. Hold down Control to drag that in. Now you can see with this one, we're not quite getting the curve that we need. So with this point here, I've just undid a couple of steps. We're going to pull some handles straight up and down like this one. And then we'll hold down Control just to sort of balance this curve out a little bit. That requires a bit of a deft touch. Probably need to move that point up a touch as well. Don't need that second handle. We've got the bottom of a circle here. We've got the right of a circle. Pull that handle in. We've got left of a circle. And this video is about to cut out. But we'll show you the result in the next one.